Hi, I'm McKinley Dixon, and you're watching Consequence.
Hello, everyone. This is Ren Graves with Consequence. McKinley Dixon is the artist of the month for my mama, and anyone who looked like her is the album. It's a staggering achievement, one of my favorite albums of the year so far, with recurring motifs of the past getting tangled up in the present. The title didn't come out of nowhere. Something very close to that was a lyric in Everything I Love from your 2018 release, The Importance of Self Belief. Who spoke that line?
That is my niece Elizabeth.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all tied in. So everything's tied together, in this world.
And when did you know that that line would be the title of your next album?
So what I usually do is whenever I hear something really cool, or like if I'm reading something that I really love, I kind of write it down in this separate notebook I have, and then if it's something that I just think is so prominent and stays with me for the next however long it is until I need something from it, I kind of just save it. And I thought For My Mama would be the perfect kind of closer for that chapter of those three albums that were kind of like all a learning curve for the interpersonal story and experiences of me.
So you see this as connected to the importance of self belief and who taught you to hate yourself. Uh,
Definitely.
uh, what did you do to, or how did you approach this sort of trilogy?
So I always kind of had in mind that I wanted to create this third album, right? So I got the idea from Toni Morrison. Toni Morrison has a Dante S trilogy, which I think is Beloved, Paradise, and Jazz. And I really loved kind of this sort of, how it's going to end. She kind of had it in mind that this is the big ending for this sort of black magical horror books that she was writing, right? So I thought that was incredible. I feel like a lot of things kind of came from her, whether people acknowledge it or not. And I think that with me, I just knew that there should be some big finish. Why not just keep the theatrics going and make some big finish for that can not only show as the ending of these albums, but also sort of the ending of a chapter of my learning in a way. And I think that I started in 2015, 2014 with the intention of having a big orchestral finish. So it just kind of came.
That's interesting. So because I don't want to jump all the way ahead, but the album closer, "Twist My Hair," is an incredibly powerful statement. I wouldn't call it optimistic necessarily. Themes of like God and society get all mixed up. So this is the closing statement for this trilogy that you've been working on for many years. Why did you want to end on that note?
It's funny. Shinichiro Watanabe, the guy who made Cowboy Bebop,
Love Cowboy
Man,
Bebop.
incredible. It's an incredible piece of media. So it's funny because the way cartoons usually work, and this is if I'm over explaining, it's like the way cartoons usually work is that you get licensed by a toy company. So a toy company will fund the whole thing in efforts to sell toys eventually. With that in mind. So I thought that I was reading about how he wrote Cowboy Bebop, and I think it was Bandai that was the company that had the rights to Cowboy Bebop, and they wanted him to sort of make this space opera that went on for a long period of time, because around that time was Star Trek. So he was kind of like, if I'm able to write the beginning and the ending first, then I'll have a definitive way to lock these into. I won't have to do this forever. This could end when it ends, and I thought that was really interesting. So with Twist My Hair, I wrote Twist My Hair and Chain So Heavy around the same time, the first and the last songs, and I always had the chorus for Twist My Hair in my head, but I knew I didn't have the resources to it to make something like that. So even the language, the third verse didn't come until 2000 like 19 or so. And I think that it sort of was a great way to show how this record is so traversed time wise and physically. I went all over in these last couple of years touring wise, and it definitely informed how I look at my music. And I think Twist My Hair was a cool way to have this song that was started in 2017 and wasn't finished until like 2019 be the end of this album.
When you started talking about designing for toys, I tried to picture a Twist My Hair toy, and boy, that would be something.
I would love toys. I think toys are so cool. Studios, if they want me to do toys, I'll yeah, I love toys.
Do you have any toys in mind that you're passionate about or that you think you could bring to the table right away?
I you want me to go? You want me to go grab some?
Sure. Are you on a tight timeline? Because otherwise, I would love to see that.
Yeah, I'm free for this next hour, so I can grab some of
Let's
my
do it.
toys.
Let's see the
Awesome.
toys.
I'll be right back. I'll be right back. So I really like anime, and I really like things like that. So I have this Astro Boy nightlight.
Okay.
Yeah, this is one of my favorites. It's the inside of him. Then I have these handmade bootleg Bride of Frankenstein, Bride of Bartenstein, little toys from 1992
Incredible.
that are like so fragile, but they're made out of resin. It's like this cool thing that I like keep on my shelf.
Where did you acquire these?
I used to work at a thrift store for an LGBTQ thrift store. And when I was there, I was just like, if something really awesome came in,
It didn't hit the shelves.
they didn't hit the shelves. Like this Bartenstein figurine. Unfortunately, it's mine now.
That's amazing. Did you feel like, because a thrift store, uh, I don't know, something about that, the feeling of like repurposing things from the past and using that in the present feels very, it feels like something that you've done a lot in your music. Do you feel like that experience working that retail job informed the themes in your music, or am I stretching here?
No, so I mean, honestly, everything is all connected. That job definitely allowed me sort of a look into a community that I would have never thought that I would be a part of. And people, not the LGBTQ community, but actually the black older community of Richmond, where I'm at. And I really thought that that kind of like meeting so many people that I would see every single day that I would have never heard stories from, you know, and in sort of sense they come and sometimes I'm the only person they talk to all day, you know, and it definitely becomes a sort of thing where I think the thrift store kind of let me know that there is even more ways and people and types of ways to talk to people that I don't think about usually, you know, which is what every experience is, what I'm trying to get out of every experience, you know?
Going back a little bit, so the album opens with "Chain So Heavy" and this kind of jarring, forceful words: "Fuck around, they take your son." Why did you want to start on that note?
I just felt like that was so powerful. Honestly, it sounded cool as hell. See, like the thing is like the theatrics of my music, for me, if it just sounds sonically awesome, then I'm like, this works. I thought that was such a great way to start off this third album because when you immediately you read a title like "For My Mama and Anyone Who Looked Like Her," you're like, what is this? What am I feeling? What am I thinking about is gonna happen? And the first thing it is like, fuck around and take your son. And it's like that is for my mama and anyone who looked like her.
I sense a little more anger in this album compared to the importance of self-belief and who taught you to hate yourself. Is that something you felt too?
Yeah, so it sounds like anger, but I think it's also more so vulnerability and confidence in what I'm saying. You know, with Who Taught You to Hate Yourself, I always knew I wanted to make For My Mama. You know, so with that one, it's mainly beats, and it was kind of this sort of controlled environment where I was like, I know what's gonna happen next. I don't need to kind of guess. I know this beat is gonna loop. I know when the chorus is coming. I know the features. You know, and that kind of mimicked me at that time period, thinking about black masculinity being the end all be all of like black liberation and the problematic aspect of that, you know what I mean? So then with the importance of self-belief, there was a lot of confusion where I'm starting to open my ideologies and my praxis and thinking more so about how black women are at the base of blackness, you know, and that sort of thing. And it's like obvious, you know, so there's a lot of more calm moments of reflection and moments where there'll be vocals from either Ali Thibodeau or like Jalen Brown, and they'll just kind of sing over empty beats so that there's this kind of reflection of like, even after these complex songs and arrangements, there is still someone who actually feels the brunt of these stories, and that is usually the person at home, you know. And it definitely became this thing where I was also confused because I was also experimenting sonically. So I think that is when I started pushing more the beats, having more hip hop with jazz, more live things, maybe try a horn arrangement. And then with this one, because I'm so confident in who I am and how I approach music and the people I record with, I think I was able to feel more comfortable and vulnerable. And that's why a lot of it is like me just jazzing, like skirting back and forth mentally, and me being okay with putting that on a record, kind of yelling back and forth mentally, you know. So I think it's a lot more of my mind and things I've been thinking this last couple of years, you know.
You talked about on one album playing around with ideas around Black masculinity, and another one you were thinking more about Black femininity. Do you feel like on this album you found some sort of synthesis, or where is your thinking now?
I don't know if I found a synthesis. I found more more questions, honestly. I think now I'm just prepared a little bit better. It's not really like I found any resolutions. I think this album is a more of a processing, because there's definitely my own internal journey of figuring out those sort of politics. But with this album, it's sort of took a left turn when I sort of wanted to process feelings that revolved around a certain incident in my life, you know, and that kind of took away from me thinking of the overarching community in a way, and more so how I interact with these people in the overarching community, you know. And I think that is a good way to sort of keep yourself grounded when you are trying to make a story that involves everybody, you know, because it's really hard. It's hard to put the whole community into your music, but if your intentions are there, then eventually you'll find a way. So I think I'm a little bit more practiced now with this album. I haven't really figured anything out.
You talked about looking internally on this album, sort of as a way of synthesizing, or as the next step in your progress. I and you talked about losses you've experienced. I think you know, one of the most powerful statements on the album is the track "Make a Poet Black." And interestingly, so you've got these lines like, "It'd be crazy if, haha, nah." And then later you say, "If I was really sad, I'd put this shit to my head, because fuck a double entendre." And then you say this person is, and you trail off, kind of letting the word dead echo in the listener's head, but not saying it explicitly. Was it a conscious decision to leave the heaviest parts unsaid?
Yeah, I think that the best artists, but mainly the best rappers, can find a way to sort of allow comedy to influence this, and it's sort of becoming a quite literal dark humor, in the sense where they're like the part where it is like I'm like nah, where I'm talking to my friend in the driver's seat, and it's really, I thought that was a cool kind of moment to be like, you can fill this space with what you think, you know. It was very intentional to let people sort of fill it with what their own personal thoughts are revolving around this, and give them a little time and space to think. That's why it comes right before that really long sort of instrumental part, you know?
Could you tell us a little bit about the events that inspired that song?
Yeah, so without getting too much into it, I had a very close friend from my childhood. I split my time in my childhood between my mother and my grandmother's house, and there was a friend that was across the street from me that I grew very close to at my grandmother's house, and I kind of spent my childhood with this person, and then we split up as we got older, and it sort of became this thing where the street was sort of a literal barrier between us two, you know. It's like, I was born October 28th, and this kid was born October 28th, just 2 years later. And it became this sort of thing where it's like, this friendship just seems so natural, but the difference is I could go home, you know, I could go back to my mother's house, I could leave, you know, and it kind of became this physical barrier, the street. So with Make a Poet Black, I didn't really connect with this person until a couple years later. And then around 2018, I found out that they had passed away because of gun violence. And sort of became this thing where it's like, there was a lot of stories that only involved me and him. There was a lot of moments that kind of like are now just me and my moments, and I'm the only one that has them. So Make a Poet Black was sort of this thing where it was like this imposter syndrome of, am I the one to really be telling these now because this person is there who can isn't there who can validate them? Is it my space to really become this sort of expert on this timeline, even though I was a part of it, you know? But it was like, why is this death now all of a sudden I'm a poet? How is that linked? And it kind of became this song where I was like, let me explore that. Let me really kind of explore what I'm thinking. And that's why there's a lot of comical moments mixed with a lot of sad moments, a lot of chaotic aspects of it, and then just kind of a loud ringing in the end that just kind of ends, you know?
And interestingly, there's very little in the way of percussion. Uh, what effect do you think that has on the track?
I think it gives more space for me to kind of breathe and more space for the listener to also think. I think that the actual the koto, the instrument, or the guzheng, the instrument that's being played, maybe it's koto, but I think that does enough with the drums. It's very piercing, and I think if I'm able to catch it with some off-kiltered lyricism or words, then I don't really need to lock myself into that. I don't really. I'm. Everybody who works with me, it's like I'm like notorious for not having a click track because I just have ideas. So with this one, it's funny. My bassist Anthony, he was kind of like, "No, you need to put a click track on this because if you're not gonna have drums, then it doesn't line up with what you're trying to fully push." You know. So I thought drums held me back with that song, and a lot of songs on the album, I feel like drums kind of hold me back. They take up a lot of space sonically.
There are recurring themes of gun violence and policing and white violence towards Black people. Um, did you have a specific approach or something that you wanted to say, or were you more responding in the moment, or how did you decide to approach all of this violence on the album?
I took it a step at a time. Honestly, there was a lot of moments of me. The way I write songs is I'll experience something, or I'll have a moment with people, or I'll think of something, and I write that moment down. Like I detail it. I write it down, and then over as time goes, I try to find ways to explain that moment as visually beautifully as I can. And once I have enough of those moments kind of in this notebook, then I have a full verse. And then with that full verse, it is a powerful piece of art to me. So then from there, I'll try to put everything together sonically underneath. And I think that I'm not gonna lie, I forgot the question, but
Just asking about how you wanted to approach the violence, because it does seem like,
oh, the violence.
well, for example,
Thank you.
like I think police are kind of I don't want to say recurring character, but this theme comes up.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I was curious about if you had a specific thing, a specific goal in mind, or just how you wanted to use that concept, like the police, to make this art.
Awesome. Okay, so yeah. So with this one, with the last two albums, Who Taught You and The Importance of, there definitely was the recurring aspect of police violence because that's kind of what me and my community were facing, you know. And then with this one, it became way more personal for me, where I kind of took the role of, okay, what if the actual villain is how I'm approaching all of these things, or how these things are affecting everybody else around me that then affects me, you know, instead of being like, now there's this figure of the police. It's like, well, actually, there's this figure of Black mental illness. There's this figure of gun violence. There's this figure of miscommunication when it comes to gangs. You know, there's this figure of me not knowing who I am because I split time between these two places and still police, you know? So it became this sort of thing where the villain became the systems, you know, now instead of the literal characters of the police, like it used to be with songs like Circle the Block or God's Land Part 1 and 2, you know, things like that. So, yeah.
Do you have a specific vision for what you would like policing in America to look like?
Eradicated. I think that if we have communal ways to handle harm and things like that, then that's better liberation for everyone involved. I think that the police should be eradicated. I have no thoughts on how the police should operate because I think they should not operate.
You said just a little while ago that your perspective is informed by splitting time between these two places. What did you mean by that?
So I grew up in Maryland, but my grandfather and grandmother stayed in New York. So there was sort of a very literal difference between the community I had in Maryland and the community I have in New York. You know, there's in Maryland, it was sort of like it's not everyone for themselves because there are rich black communities in Maryland. But for me, I had a better time sort of living with my grandparents and being in New York where there was a little bit more like recklessness with how I can maneuver through life. And there's a lot more, I'm out here playing football in the streets, catching fireflies, and I'm not thinking about the traumas of like school or things like that. So the community was just so drastically different that it sort of informed how I think my music comes out when it's like, where am I pulling the stories from? I only have a short amount of limited time that I existed in these moments in the past, you know? So it gets a little hard when you are trying to claim a place that you have limited time in, you know? And that's a lot of what my album is trying to do, is trying to reclaim my autonomy and my thoughts very, very openly, you know? So it's a lot of that.
You talk about reclaiming your thoughts. In some of the press releases, you had used this metaphor of time travel, art as time travel. But you know, time travel isn't something that most of us are like familiar with. We can't actually do it. So what is your vision of time travel? Is it bringing us to the past or bringing the past to us, or what does that look like?
So I love talking about time travel, but I am not a horologist. I am not a linguist also. But so that means don't look anything up. Don't look anything I'm saying. I mean, you can feel it, but like I'm not like. But what I view time travel is, so the way I see it is as blackness and rap. So rap is something that is so heavily reliant on blackness because it's mainly about where you're at, where you want to go, who are you with right now that you want to take with you, what certain situation are you trying to describe, and how visually do you want, like how well do you want to allow the listener to see what you're saying. And I think that is so deeply rooted in the black experience that it makes rap sort of different from other genres, you know? And I think because of that, and because of who I am and how black people are, we kind of see and listen to these stories and we put ourselves in positions, we take it in, we can see how I'm gonna approach something next because of these tales and these people, or I wanna hear what was going on in the 90s from this artist who is very heavily involved in something personally in this time period, you know? And I think with rap, it's different because it's a personal story. I think with bands, you can have multiple people input their way and their experiences. But with rap, it kind of is so personal to the black experience. And I think in the West, we view time travel as something that can be conquered or captured or sort of like used as a tool, when in actuality, there are small instances of time travel around us if we don't look at it as something that can be colonized, you know? Me explaining to a younger cousin about a time I was at one time with somebody who was involved, that could be in a way passing of culture and stories and short time travel, you know? I think language access allows for quick time travel, and I think that rap provides that so heavily with just what it is at its root. And I think for me, while this is me processing things in the past, present, and how I'm going to maneuver in the future, it sort of can be the same for other black people that look like my mama, and how they can kind of think, okay, now I have language for this incident that I might be into, or this run-in that I'm going to have, or now I know that I'm more aware that therapy is an option, mental health, you know, it's just kind of, I think time travel is not as conquerable as we think if we look at it from the root. It's kind of it's hard because I'm also not a horologist, and I like the terms are there, but conceptually.
Well, I wasn't expecting you to time travel for us on video, but it's good to hear your,
Surprise.
yeah, I know, right? But it's good to, we want to hear your perspective on this because it's an interesting concept. It's an interesting philosophical approach.
I appreciate that it's a philosophical approach because to me, I feel like rappers and black people kind of just know it. I think that also is what makes that also kind of puts the magical and mythical aspect of time travel in there because in a way, we just kind of know, the language that I speak and how I talk to other black folks, it can kind of be seen as time travel. I think that it's just so easy for people that look like me to do it that they don't even think they're doing it.
So the title of this album it's both referencing your mother and then people, a broader group of people. But do you have musical memories with your mother?
Um, Not really. My mama really likes every artist who has Mary in their name. She like Mary J. Blige. She like Mary Mary. She really kind of just only listened to that sort of genre. So for me, it didn't really do anything when I was younger because I would associate it with cleaning the damn house or it's time to go do something or we're on our way back from something, and I think it didn't really lock in until I was a little bit older that music is very viable. So
So looking back, where did the love of music come from? Who are the people or experiences that informed your love of music?
so my love for music, it kind of happens like continuously. So I would say it started when I was younger. I really would I really loved the dramaticisms and the theatrics of like white boys who would just dress up as ringleaders or whatever and be singing about like mannequins or something, like some weird stuff like that. And it was just cool how they were just didn't even care. They don't even care that they just look like a circus clown, because they're singing about something that they think is so personal and so deep. So I thought I really loved how bands like My Chemical Romance or Panic or The Used were just sort of these cats that did whatever they wanted and were comfortable and honestly even put some gender identity back before me and a lot of people I think really even were thinking about it like that. So I thought that I loved that, but I didn't like the lyrics. The lyrics were not really doing it for me. So then I sort of came into around like high school, late high school, and then early college. I was kind of like, well, let me go back and address how I kind of have anti-blackness because I didn't listen to rap because I thought it was something. So now let me go back and listen to like the older heads. So I was listening to a lot of Sean Price, Guilty Simpson, shouts out to them, like Planet Asia and those homies, Blue, and I would kind of hear like, okay, this is an older generation that is very confident. These cats are able to rhyme so effortlessly that they have no worry when you're next to them. So coming from the theatrics, then kind of came sort of the confidence and me talking to like grown men, when I was like 18, 17 years old and them being very straightforward with me because of their lives and everything that's going on with them. It's sort of like, okay, now I have to know how to talk to these people. I can't just, the white boys could do whatever they want, but I can't. I have to know that there's more ways to talk to these people. So then after that kind of phase, it sort of became into the current phase where I'm at now, where, or not now, but late like college years, early touring when I was like in indie DIY and people were putting me in that phase, in that group. And so then from there, it was kind of like, well, now I'm in this community that is pretty disrespectful to me, but because of what I have and what I've done, I'm not afraid of any of these people. I think that I am now confident because of that. So I don't really have too many, that's all just to say that I don't really have too many musical memories, but the way that my musical timeline works has allowed me to sort of have different experiences with how I approach different things and people. So
Not to hold your social media life up to too great of scrutiny, but you said something really interesting recently. You had a tweet. I'm not going to speak in your voice, but paraphrasing slightly, you said, "Dear publications, either I'm not a conscious rapper or every rapper is a conscious rapper." But you said you either every either I'm not a conscious rapper, or every rapper is a conscious rapper. You said white folks see Black existence as inherently political. They then force competition between Black artists when both are just talking about their life and experiences. Do you think that that label conscious rap has been misused, or do you think it was like poorly conceived from the start?
I think both. I think that conscious rap is just so the timeline of rap like has always been political, you know, from the beginning. So when it started to split off into other avenues, I think a lot of people saw it as diverging when in actuality it became more accessible. And I think it becoming more accessible sort of had people that weren't involved in the genre or in the lifestyle sort of nitpicking it more and categorizing it more and finding more ways to do that easier. And that then became something that, because the people who are making those decisions kind of have influence over the overt culture, it sort of came back to the rappers and things of that nature who are then like, well, now I must be the best in this genre because of this person is getting accolades. And I think that a lot of it kind of comes from the difference with comparing two bands is that you're comparing multiple artist stories, multiple people's lives, multiple groups. So to the point where you can't really do that. So you just compare bands' timelines, you know. But with rappers, you are comparing two people's personal stories, which I don't think people think about off the jump. You know, when they say like Biggie versus Tupac, it's actually not saying Biggie versus Tupac's catalog. It's more so saying the life and personal history of these two people, you know. And I think that kind of becomes an issue when you are saying somebody's life is not something that they're just talking about regularly, the conscious aspect of it, you know. And I think, well, if this person isn't talking about their life, then this isn't conscious music, you know. It's just so hard when I recently got this review that was like, McKinley Dixon's music is more like Eric B than it is Lil Wayne's. And I'm like, well, and Rakim than Lil Wayne's. And it's like, well, that doesn't make any sense because I draw from both of them. And honestly, both of them are telling incredible stories and are incredible artists. So why do I need to be commodified and palatable for a certain group when both of these people were palatable for me? I don't know. It gets so weird when people try to say what is conscious rap and what is not conscious rap. It's like, why? I don't know. It's kind of dumb.
And comparing artist to another artist, if you're trying to do like this is recommended if you like, that's one thing. But just being like, this person is like this artist and not that artist, it's a little lazy.
Exactly. And that's the thing. Recommended if you like is a way better approach than this artist is more so this artist drawing from this and then that. And it's like, that just kind of means you're putting two stories against each other for no reason. Who asked for that, you know?
But some music that is classified as rap or hip hop, which is probably really more pop music, is not about personal experiences. Do you see that as a divide, as like the pop versus hip hop, or?
Yeah, I think that all aspect of hip hop, I think all aspect of the Black experience should have its own space to exist. And I think that there is conscious rap, and I think conscious rap is one used mainly within hip hop. It's not used against the broader genres in relation to hip hop. You know, it'd be one thing if it would be like, oh, this is pop that has hip hop in it, and then this is conscious rap. You know, it's like that. It's just sort of, I think it's weird going upwards when it's not, when it happens more so within the genre. You know, I think that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Now that you have completed this trilogy, obviously you're, barely out of the gates with this latest album. But looking forward, where do you Where do you see, because you're in a sense you're almost starting over, right? You just finished the third in a 3 album arc. So where do you see yourself going from here?
That's a good ass question. I don't know. Probably to I don't know. I don't really think about it too much. I think that I thought so hard about this album that the next one just kind of seems so far away. I'm comfortable with this album, you know, with the importance of self belief and with Who Taught You. I kind of knew that I wasn't comfortable with how those came out or how they were finished or the things I had access to yet. So with this one, I'm like comfortable with it. So it's cool to see because I feel like it can last the test of time, which is good for me because I don't be writing like that. Like features are so hard because I'm just like, oh, you want me to just rap just about something? I don't know. I can't really just give you something. So I think I'm just kind of sitting with this one for now, letting it do its thing and letting me see what I can do. You know, it's all learning, all it's a learning experience.
Can you? I'm interested in this idea that a feature is sort of not a part of your normal hip hop practice. So what do you find? I don't want to say challenging, but what do you when somebody's like, here's a track, just rap about the following themes or whatever. Is it boring, or is it not appealing, or you just have to try and get yourself in the mood, or what is it that makes you go, I don't know about doing features?
Honestly, it's just like I don't want to sound stupid. I don't want to. I feel like people have such like I have such personal and thought out stories for my music that when someone sends me something, they're like, "Oh, it's about this." I'm kind of like, "This? Like what? Like what? How this relates to what? Like this is what?" And then I just kind of start guessing myself on what sounds like trash or not, and then I don't know. I guess kind of fear that that's part of my discography is trash. I release trash. I don't know. Features are just so hard to think from somebody else's perspective. And then, you know, I don't know. I guess communication is key. I'm just so introspective about myself that I can't just hop on somebody's verse. I'm trying. I'm working on it. Trying to get better at it, you know, see how it goes.
What are you drawing inspiration from these days? What I don't know if it's art or personal experiences, or but what are the things that you find inspiring now?
My friends, I love my friends. Now that the sun is out, I love seeing them exist. My black, queer, black trans friends, I love seeing them happy. And I think a lot of my influences are now coming from moments and experiences with them and just seeing them full, you know, playing basketball, things like that. And just me being a part of it and being so happy to be a part of that, I think is drawing a lot of experience from my stuff now. And also, I love Toni Morrison. And whenever I get stuck, I kind of crack open this Toni Morrison quote book, and it just kind of is. Every page is just so good. Here, I'm gonna give you one. I'm gonna give you one. They rose up like men. We saw them like men. They stood. It's like it's like where you can go so many places. I can put that in so many lines, and I can just kind of like use that and utilize it. It's like brilliant. Like what you do to children matters, and they might never forget. It's like that. How many songs of mine is that? Just a random page, you know? So I draw a lot of inspiration from Toni Morrison. Also, that's kind of how I learned to talk about a lot of things. It's how I learned to talk, you know? Greatest rapper of all time.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for your time and offering all of your thoughts on these uh, really challenging issues and fun things. This was lovely.
Oh no, thank y'all. Y'all have been so great. I mean, I knew y'all were cool when I said I would like to fight Matt and Kim, and y'all put me on right behind Matt and Kim on that festival. I was like, this is so funny. That's so funny. I wish I made Daylight. That was hilarious. Y'all are funny. I appreciate that.
Thank you. The album is for my mama and anyone who look like her. Do yourself a favor and listen to it like 17 times in a row. You won't regret it.
Thank you.